Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and this is wood-fired tri-tip and Pinquito Beans. Well, today we are headed to the West Coast for some Santa Maria style barbecue. We're gonna be cooking up our California tri-tip over oak wood, as well as the Santa Maria specialty Pinquito Beans. Now, Pinquito Beans are these small white beans that get stewed in some beef stock, along with some ham and bacon, some tomatoes and some chilies. Incredibly tasty, goes really well with the wood-fired tri-tip. We'll serve it all up with some tortillas and salsa. It's gonna be magical. Let's jump right in by getting on these beans. So years ago in Food and Wine, we came across these Pinquito beans. I've been dying to do them ever since, and we finally ordered some. They come from Lompoc, which is just south of Santa Maria, California, and they're these little white beans locally grown in California. Now, if you're not gonna order yourself some of these Pinquitos, you could go ahead and use like a navy bean or another small white bean, but either way, you're gonna wanna soak them in cold water overnight. So we got those beans rinsed now and drained off. We got to get them softened, so that's going to take a while. But instead of just boiling them in water, we can actually kind of create a little extra flavor like we're making a stock by adding in half a large yellow onion, a whole jalapeno, and then some crushed garlic. Then we're going to take some cold water and get everything covered. Probably gonna need about 6 cups total. We'll throw a lid on this and we're just gonna let it cook until these beans are tender for the next hour or two. But the beans have been simmering for about an hour now. They should be softened up in the next 30 to 60 minutes. So we're gonna fire up the grill because we're gonna finish off these beans on the grill as well as cook our tri-tip on the grill here. Today we're cooking on the Yoder Smoker's flat top. This is the adjustable charcoal grill. But we're not actually using much charcoal. We're gonna be burning down oak splits for our coals today. So we're just gonna throw a couple of our Kamado Joe fire starters in here to help us get going. And then we'll kind of log cabin some splits on top here. So we want this to fully burn down into coals. Then we can add a little bit of lump to it just to help sustain the heat. But for the most part, we want to be cooking with our oak coals today. Now, while those oak splits are burning down, we're going to trim up our tri-tip roast. Today we're cooking a Creekstone Farms Prime tri-tip roast. And we just want to get any of this like silver skin that you can see underneath that fat. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Anything you don't want to be chewing on later. And I should say it's not the fat that I mind here, it's just that silver skin that doesn't really break down. So on the other side here, like you can see some of this fat, we don't really need to mess with it. There's no silver skin underneath it, but down here toward this tip we see that membrane underneath there, so we want to go ahead and remove that. See, we got a little bit on this back side too. Now for seasoning, we need a little bit of a slather just to work as a binder on here, get our rub to stick. So we're gonna use the Hoff and Pepper Smokin' Ghost, one of my favorite hot sauces right now. But you can use oil, you can use mustard, you can use any number of things, anything that's gonna help your rub stick to the meat. Speaking of the rub, today we are using Cattleman's Grill California tri-tip. This is the namesake for this rub. Is this piece of meat. So a match made in heaven, a savory Santa Maria style seasoning, salt, pepper, garlic, some red bell pepper in there. Basic stuff, but fantastic flavors. All right. So this we can kind of set aside for now. And we're gonna go back to our Pinquito beans. All right, so the beans took, it was probably about an hour 45 to soften up, hour and a half to hour 45. We're gonna strain off this liquid for now. We don't want all of it. We are gonna reserve some of it. Let's take a look at these beans though. So you can see how they're holding together. They're not falling apart yet, but if we do pick it up and press it, it'll smash. So that's kind of the consistency we're going for right now. They smell incredible already. I mean, there's no salt, there's no seasoning, but that onion and jalapeno in there and the garlic. I'm just gonna save a cup of this for later. So we're getting a nice coal base out of our oak splits now. We've broken most of the way down. I'm gonna lower this down a little bit. We don't have a Santa Maria style grill per se, but this will work in a very similar fashion. I'm gonna drag that grate right over the top of the fire. We'll let our Dutch oven start to preheat, and at the same time, we're gonna roast off a couple of Anaheim peppers. All right, so we're looking to get these fully blackened, just like that. We got one spot that needs a little bit more color here. The idea here is to blister the skin so that it releases from the flesh. The flesh is softened but smoky, adding that nice texture without the skin and a bit of smokiness to the end product. So go ahead and get some bacon going to finish off these beans as well. I want to get this rendered down and crispy, and then we'll start building on the layers of flavor for the beans. Pepper's looking good now. Gonna stick those in a bag to steam for the next 5 to 10 minutes. All right, bacon's looking crispy. So we're gonna add in now a half cup of smoked diced ham and a half cup of white onion. We're gonna cook these down until that onion is getting tender and translucent. Just cook it right here in the bacon grease. We're also gonna get some seasonings in here at this time. We want a little bit of sweetness to these beans, not a lot. We're just gonna take 1 tablespoon of Cattleman's Grill Smoky Chipotle because this is largely turbinado sugar that's in there. It's also got a lot of coffee in it, and that earthiness is gonna go perfect with these beans and this beef. But to add some extra depth of flavor, I'm gonna introduce to you guys a brand new rub that I developed for Cattleman's Grill called Roadhouse. It's a steak and beef rub. It's nice and chunky. You can see salt's the #1 flavor. After that, you've got garlic, pepper, onion, and then some really cool stuff like some celery seed, chipotle powder, a couple other things going on. These are all great flavors when we're talking about mixing beef, bacon, onions, garlic, all that stuff. So let's go ahead and finish processing these peppers. We get rid of the stem, split this open, get rid of those seeds, and then peel the skin off. All right, so from here, we're just gonna give these a rough dice. And those are gonna kind of just melt into our beans. Onions are softened up. Let's go ahead and add now our roasted Anaheims and about a tablespoon of garlic. We give that about 30 to 60 seconds to cook down. And then we're gonna add some liquid. God, this is smelling incredible, guys. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna add 1 cup of peeled whole tomatoes. Kind of chop those up to break them down a bit. Also going to add a couple tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce and a cup of beef broth. All right, so we want this to come up to a simmer and cook for about 10 minutes before we add the beans, because those beans are about 90% of the way cooked already. Before we do that, it's gonna add just a little bit more fire or a little bit more wood to our coal bed. This stuff's going pretty strong. Still putting off a lot of heat. We'll add a couple more splits here. So I'd like this fire to kind of die down a bit before we get the tri-tip over it. All right, so this is thickened up really nicely. At this point, we're ready to add in our beans. Let those come back up to temperature because they've been kind of cooling off while they drain. You can see how that's just soaking up all that liquid. So that's why we've reserved some of that cooking liquid from the beans, so you can kind of thin this out to your desired consistency. So now this just needs to stay warm while we're cooking the tri-tip. So we're ready to cook this tri-tip now. I don't necessarily want straight up flame on it the whole time. So we're scooting this over a bit. We're making some room for the meat. We're gonna go over the hot coals. We'll just close this up and let it start to come up to temperature. All right, tri-tip's been on for about 15 minutes. Been kind of monitoring the color, and it's looking really beautiful. Great crust going on there. We're just keeping this close to the coals. We actually popped those up a level. We're gonna aim for a finishing temperature about 125, sitting right around 100 now, so we're in good shape. Well, our tri-tips come right up to 125, and that's our target temperature, so we are gonna be ready to pull this off of here. Those beans are looking good. We'll just keep them over the coals for now as our tri-tip rests and we start to slice it up. All right, tri-tip's rested for about 10 minutes now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start slicing into this thing. My first cut I'm gonna make here is kind of with the grains of the mussels, and then we'll spin this and we'll go across the grain of the mussels and just slice it super thin. So by making these really thin cuts, you essentially make those mussel fibers very short, so no matter what, it's going to be very tender. I guess looking at doneness here too, we got just that little bit of a pink center. You can probably see it even more pronounced here in the thickest part. Pink center, still plenty juicy. I'm just going to break this down into a little bit smaller pieces, making them a little bit easier to eat. What you want to do, sliced or diced, is totally up to you. But one thing you don't want to forget is run it through those juices on the board, because it will soak all of that liquid right back up until there's none left. All right, let's dish it up. A nice scoop of beans there. Throw some tri-tip on the side. Serve that up with a little flour tortilla, some of your favorite salsa. That's a perfect bite right there. Oh man, those beans. Gosh, there is so much flavor going on in these. I mean, you got two different kinds of pork in here. The bacon and the ham, the onions and the garlic, the beef stock, but even in these beans themselves, yeah, so we injected that onion, jalapeno, garlic flavor into the beans while they were becoming tender. I mean, even before we made the sauce that goes with them. And then this tri-tip. Such a wonderful cut of beef, not too fatty, but such great tender bite to it when you cook it just right, slice it just right. Classic Santa Maria flavors. This is a really special version of American barbecue, the Santa Maria style barbecue. Love it. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoy the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to atbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.